Again, what are you doing?
Okay, get started. Go ahead.
All right, so welcome, Mathilde. We're going to have some fun today in the Armory. And it didn't go again. What the heck?
Rookie.
This is not.
Oh.
All right, I don't know what's happened to my savoring skills. But it didn't even break the glass here. So we're just going to open it. No more.
You're able to even open the bottle there, Brad. You need some help.
Yeah, now the glass is starting to come off. All right, we got it. No more savoring for me. I didn't cut myself.
Yeah, well, the first few sessions we did with Brad, it was so effortless. He'd stick the button, and it was like, oh my God, every time. And then something happened, Brad. Something happened to you, man.
All right, you shouldn't have started recording. Why did you start recording, Todd?
I want everyone to see your skill level there.
Aye.
Or lack thereof.
We have Margaine. We got 98 Special Club, so we're good.
Okay, so I'll start it out now, just to start with introductions and rules. And some of us have a more difficult time getting Margaine wines than others. We on the West Coast don't have as easy of a time as some people. So to those who are able to be drinking the wines right now, write in the chat what you are drinking and what your notes are, because while we continue this discussion on video, that gives people the opportunity to discuss the wine and other things throughout, because everyone is muted until the end. This way you can keep interaction going. There are two options for view. It's in the upper right. There's gallery view and speaker view. This is going to be recorded in speaker view so that the person who is speaking, you obviously see the most of. If you want to see everyone at once, you can do gallery view. We're going to have Frank and Brad do some introductions to Mathilde, and then kind of guide through and see how long the weather lasts, because it's been storming a lot there in Champagne. So, and then at the end, oh, we hear birds. That's a good sign. And look at the skies opening up. That's a good sign.
It's getting better.
That's good. All right. So, and then at the end, we're going to open up for a question and answer. We're going to use the raise hand function, which raises a little blue hand next to your name, and then I can call on you and unmute you. You can ask Mathilde your questions directly. So now I'll turn it over to both Frank and Brad as they see fit.
All right. Let me just make an opening comment, and then I'm going to give it right to Brad and let him take it away. So good morning to all of you that joined today. Thank you very much. This is our fifth one, I think. In a moment, when Brad cues me, I'll show you the map on where we've been on the previous sessions, and of course, where we are today, we'll explore that. I have not had the pleasure to visit Margaine or meet Mathilde yet, but I think when I can get back on an airplane and have a safe trip over there, then I'll be buzzing her and letting her know when I can come by and make an appointment. So thank you for having us today, Mathilde, and I'm going to turn it over to you and Brad. Let Brad make some comments and get us started.
Okay. So thank you, Mathilde, for spending your Saturday evening with us and braving the weather out there in the vineyard. It's wonderful for you to join us. And just for everybody here, you know, Mathilde is one of the new young generation in Champagne who's coming up. So again, along with people like Baresh, Alexandre Tarton, Francois Huret, Flavien Novak, on and on and on, Cedric Mousset. I mean, this really is the future of Champagne. So I'm really hoping that, Mathilde, you can tell us your story and maybe start out just telling us a little bit about A. Margaine, about, you know, the history, your village, just so everyone can get a good background, because everyone may not be as familiar with Margaine as I am or a few of the others on this call are.
Okay. First of all, I think Flavien Novak is nearly my age, just for him. It's from the new generation, but so I'm here in Les Brocaux, so I'm gonna try to turn my camera now. Okay, so here I am in one of our vineyards, and it's just at the back of the village, so you can see the village from here, which is Villers-Marmerie. So if there is anything wrong, just if you can't hear me, just tell me, because you know, technical stuff are not the best in Champagne. So yeah, globally, Margaine, everything is nearly based in Villers-Marmerie. 99% of our vineyard is based in Villers-Marmerie, and so it's really important to us because we are really working on one single terroir, and Villers-Marmerie terroir is kind of special in the mountain of France, as obviously normally you will find most of the time Pinot Noir, and we are surrounded by Grand Cru Pinot Noir, but here we are in a village that is 98% Chardonnay based, so working basically with Chardonnay only, which is also giving some of singularity to what we do here. So I'm the 5th generation, so still working with my dad, but yeah, working in this vineyard fully in Villers-Marmerie, fully Chardonnay, and so the really important part about Villers-Marmerie is that globally we have the sun exposure that is kind of nearly the same as the Côte des Blancs, which is southeast. That explains why we grow Chardonnay instead of Pinot Noir in that area of the mountain of Reims. So yeah, and in where I am right now is like Chardonnay based again, just because we at home we have 90% of the Chardonnay and the rest is Pinot Noir, and it's mainly used for the Breton vintage and otherwise for the rosés.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I guess, to me about Villers-Marmerie is you go back to when they were classifying the villages as Premier Cru, Grand Cru, or No Cru. Villers-Marmerie used to be about half Pinot Noir, half Chardonnay. And I think because of that, it became a Premier Cru vineyard. I mean, today it's predominantly 95%, 90% Chardonnay or more. It really is a Grand Cru. I mean, if you see it, connection to Verzy, Verzenay, Mailly, as you continue to go down, you have Ambonnet, Bouzy-le-Roi. All of those are Grand Crus. It has similar soil. So to me, it really is a Grand Cru. It just, there was too much Pinot at the time they did the rankings. And it should have been more Chardonnay then.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's also because I do think that there is also the fact that we don't really, have the normal kind of, cépage, grape variety for the area. So I think it has also some influence on the ranking of Grand Cru and Premier Cru. But obviously, that is mainly politics at the time. So, we weren't there to discuss and debate about that. So, but we are ranking at 98%. So nearly,
Right, and people paid more for the grapes from Villers-Marmerie as well. So the grape price was fairly equivalent with Grand Cru. So you could tell that
it is
thought it was important.
It is nearly the same.
Yeah,
it's nearly the same. So we don't complain about that part. So yeah, and anyway, big champagne houses are still looking kind of a lot for Chardonnay grapes. So and the one from Villers-Marmerie are bringing something different from the one in other areas. I would say, you get here the huge acidity and tension that is kind of, cool when you're want to do some long aging bottles. So there is definitely a lot of big houses that are looking for Villers-Marmerie, Haute-Répaille, and Vendange Chardonnays. I will mention some, but there is a Ruinart, there is Lançon, Clicquot. I mean, a lot of them are, having a lot of grapes from here. Actually, Veuve Clicquot has as the biggest vineyard they are the one that have the most vineyard in Villers-Marmerie.
Wow. Can we show the maps, Brad? Is now a good time to do that, to give people
we can go ahead and I can show the map. Like I said, the other question I guess I have for Mathilde that I think is interesting for people to know is, so I believe you have, about 10 hectares, but you only use about 6.5 for your own. And you mentioned some of the big houses, and I mean, extremely good names like Clicquot, Bollinger, Roederer are kind of the top of the top, and actually really caring about the grapes, purchase grapes from you as well. Yeah, so I mean, my grandfather, back at the time, we starting, the estate in 1920. Back at the time, we were mainly doing Coteaux Champenois. And when my grandfather took over in the 70s, a little bit earlier, it was
he was making some champagne. He started making champagne, but he wasn't doing that much of a volume. So he started selling to the big houses, and we had a pressing center here. So in the estate we have a pressing center, and we press our own grapes, but we also do press some grapes of other growers of the village. So we always had like a huge relationship with the big houses, and so we are still selling some of our grapes to them. Obviously, we are keeping the one that we want, but yeah, we're working with all this estate like a Roderer, like Clicquot, Bollinger. I would mention Lançon. So we are working with a bunch of them, which is great also to always have this relationship with the big houses, because they are also having their parts, you know, here. So yes, this is what we do. And so from what we keep like, yeah, around 6.5 hectares to do our own champagne.
Yeah, and I
so
think
you got the map.
Because, and sorry, I'll get to that in a second. The big houses we work with, and the three that were mentioned, Clicquot, Roderer, and Bollinger, are the only three big houses that I recall ever rejecting grapes from people and sending them back. So you're actually working with the best of the best in terms of quality, and to me, that's important.
I mean, we try, we try, but yeah, I mean, for us, it's really important to have, you know, this relationship. Give them also, you know, when we are selling the grapes, we are also selling grapes that we, you know, we grow. So we took big care of with them. So it's always, you know, really meaningful when they go to some prestigious cuvée from the big houses. So I mean, it's still like something we like to do. So. Yeah, but there is just some of them that are not using you know, the grapes that they buy in their prestige cuvée, but some of them do. So when it's the case, it's like pretty cool.
Okay.
Brad, can we see the soil?
Back to the maps.
Brad, can we see the soil there before Mathilde gets back to the village?
Yeah, sure. If you want, I guess, Mathilde, can you show us the soil there in Brocco?
Okay. Yeah. Let's try to switch the camera again. All right. Here it is. So we here is like there's a lot of grass right now because it rained. So obviously it's growing quite much. But we work one road out of the two homes. So one is full of grass and one is without. It's like doing that every single one of them. Just because when my dad starts not using chemicals. He did like a full grass everywhere, and after a few years the vines were having some trouble to grow, so he decided to just do half and half, which is still a good competition for us, but not too much, because we still want our vineyard to keep the energy needed to grow. So here, this is what you can see, and so we're in the Brocco. We are in like a soil which is clay and lime, clay and chalk. The chalk is I would say not that deep here, and if you can see, it's doing like at the bottom. There is like a kind of I don't know how to say that, like a drop, and this vineyard is where we go when we want to see if Odium is going to be there on this year, on a year, because this is the first vineyard that get Odium in our estate. So when we try to find some, we go there, and most of the time we do find a little bit. So it's like a kind of, you know, the one that are like fragile, I would say. So yeah. And so all the soil in Villers-Marmaris is going to be mainly clay. We have also a little bit on flint, which will be in the Champs d'Enfer, which is near to Trépaille, and clay and chalk most of the time in everywhere in Villers-Marmaris. But we have at least 1 meter of you know, soil before getting to the clay and the chalk. So limestone, I would say. So you have to get deeper to get that, I would say, compared to the Côte des Blancs where you're directly on the chalk. And as we are working the soil, to manage the grass, the roots are going pretty much really deep down. So this is what we try to do to get to this chalk and clay.
Yeah, and similar soil to what you find in Verzy and Verzenay as well. And as you said, I think most of Village Marmary is similar, except for the Champ d'Enfer, which is quite different.
Yeah, the Champ d'Enfer is quite different. Literally, when you translate it, it's devil lands. So from French to English. So you have obviously like big rock of flint, and I think that back at the time it was not the easiest vineyard to do. So I think it got its name from that. And we have a lot of flint in there. So it's giving a little bit of, you have like a smoky aspect to the vin clair that we get from there.
Huh, fascinating.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You talked about the odium. I can remember talking with you about Broco there. And I remember you saying it's like a sauna. It just gets so hot and almost steamy at times.
Yeah. There is no, the wind, as it's doing a drop at some point, there is no wind. So obviously, if there is no air, it's this is where the things stick to some place and are not moving. So this is where we can see odium at the beginning. The earliest, I would say. But Broco is when you're working here, you're going in the morning. You're not going in the afternoon. I can tell you. Otherwise, you're like dying. So you got it here. So so if you go back on the other map.
Okay, let me go back, Mathilde.
So you have, can you zoom?
Sure, of course.
So this is where you have your hands. Not anymore. This is, literally here.
Okay. That's where your camera is right now? Right there?
No, a little bit down. Yes, you got it.
Right there.
Yeah. So just at the top of the village globally, near not that far from the forest, but the forest is still far enough not to get the fresh air from the forest, I would say.
So the village is right here, and then your winery. Is this your winery here?
It is, exactly. You got it.
Okay. Yep. How big is the village? How many people inside the village?
The village is slowly growing. The fields are becoming houses. So we'd say that we are up to 600 people now, maybe rising to 700 pretty soon. But not that big of a village, I would say, compared to Verzy next door, which is bigger. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Verzy is bigger. They put Verzy up just for a second. So Verzy is here, and then you are here.
Yeah, next door.
Right, next door. Okay, I can stop the share.
So this is where it gets really warm. So,
beautiful there.
Yeah, this is done for the storm, so we have sun now.
Brad, maybe you can explore a little bit about farming practices since we talked about chemicals a minute ago. I'm curious.
Yeah, well, there's no, I would say, certification that Margaine goes for, but I think Mathilde can talk about, there's no herbicide. Everything is as natural as can be. I know they're big believers in every vintage is a unique gift from nature, and you need to treat each one differently. So she can talk about that. The other, I think, interesting thing about Broco, I can remember tasting some of, I think, the wines there. I think it was 2019, or I can't remember, it was 2018, that you had odium and you used some sulfur to treat the odium, and then it didn't rain. And even though when you pressed the wines, the analysis said there was no sulfur, you could tell because it was very reductive. And because the sulfur sat on the vines, somehow it made its way into the wine, even though it didn't show up anywhere, which I think is very, very interesting.
So yeah, I mean, first of all, Villers-Marmory is known to be kind of a reductive terroir anyway. So we will always get at some point this reduction, and this is why during the vinification we are working a lot with some aeration, putting some air, oxygen into the wine just to get in kind of rid of this reduction, because sometimes it can be too much. But obviously, a reduction is also the result of, lack of nitrogen, as we said last time. So more you put grass, more you put all sulfur and stuff like that, it's adding a little bit of reduction to the wine. So we at home we use only copper and sulfur, except if it's getting really bad. So it's been years that we haven't been using any, except 2017, where we got kind of like a tricky harvest. But otherwise, it's only copper and sulfur, and for odium, obviously, it's only sulfur. In Broco, we use some sulfur powder just to avoid this odium, which is working really well. It's tend to show in the wine, even though we didn't get in the analysis, we don't have any results saying that we have too much sulfur in the juice that we get after the harvest. So it's kind of something intriguing here. I think there is a mix between the sulfur and between the lack of nitrogen because of the grass. I think it's a mix of both, and obviously we can't really see it in the results, but I'm 100% sure that it has something to do with it.
Yeah, and I think, what you pointed out earlier with you and your father, you don't have the grass or the herbs in every row. I mean, you'll talk to some people who say you need to have grass everywhere if you're natural. You really have to take every vineyard separately as well. I mean, there's no right answer everywhere.
No. There is no right answer at all. It's just depending on your vineyard. I mean, we did it. We put full grass everywhere. It's just, I mean, we didn't see the point of having full grass everywhere and like a vineyard that doesn't look well. So just for us, it's too much. I mean, it's too much. I know that, for example, I went to Christophe Mignon. He's working organically, and with me, he's not. No, there is no grass at all. He's just working every soil, even though he's not using it.
Wow. Did we lose her? I think we lost her, Frenchie.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Yep, she checked out. She'll be back.
He was talking about Christophe Mignon and his practices of bio and organic and not having grass, and that's when I lost her.
Yeah, which I think is an interesting point, because people say you need grass, you need to do this way, or you're not truly organic or truly natural. But depending on where you're at, you can get a lot of excess humidity. Again, depending on the soil, it can be too difficult with the competition. So you have to look at every vineyard, every parcel differently.
She's back.
Yeah.
All
Sorry
right.
about that. Sorry about that. I don't know where I was.
You were mentioning Christophe Mignon and how he has no grass in his vineyards, even though he's natural and organic practicing.
Yeah. And he's saying that his soil is not, his vineyard wouldn't be able to get that much grass. So it's just depending on where you are, what you do, and from knowing your own vineyard. I would say there is no right answer. I know that in Clicquot, in Villers-Marmory, they were putting grass everywhere, and since 2 years they stopped doing it. So, maybe it's the answer in Villers-Marmory. I don't know. Actually, it's the answer for us.
Okay. So I can see from looking at the chat, someone wanted to, I guess, get a little more into the family history. So from what I know, Villers-Marmory was quite a big village for Champagne before World War I. World War I came along, and it was really a base for the Allied forces. Your estate was a hospital. You still have artwork on your walls that were drawn by the soldiers that were there in the hospital. It was a battleground, and it fell from just across World War I from 170 hectares down to 70 hectares. I mean, if those of you who've read the book, you know, Champagne, How It Triumphed by Don and Pleedy Gladstruff, this is, you know, where things happen. And then after the war, your family kind of got going. You mentioned your grandfather, who I know really got the business going in the 60s and 70s. Your father came back when, in 1989, and then took over, I think, completely in 1999?
So he came back in 88. First vintage was 88, even though he was working with my grandfather, yes, until 98.
Yeah.
But
And then,
no
so
worries,
when did you?
still around.
Yeah.
Like,
So does your grandfather still participate in some of the blends and dosage trials and anything like that anymore?
so he's we're doing the tasting, the vin clair tasting together. But this is the only one that he's doing, like the vin clair tasting and then the blending one. But that's it. He's saying that he doesn't smell anything anymore, which is not true. But you know, he's I know.
When did you come back to, I guess, officially join the domain and work alongside your father?
So I came back at the beginning. At the beginning of 2018 growing season. So January 2018, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then you first started. It was 1920 when you first started bottling your own champagne under the Margaine family name.
Wait, say it again. Sorry, I didn't get the question.
When in 1920, because you've been growing grapes since I think at least 1890 or so. When did you first make your own Margaine bottles for sale? Was it in 1920 or right around then?
Yeah, it's 1921. But again, back at that time it was Coteau Champenois only. It wasn't sparkling.
Yeah, and you still make Coteau Champenois from Pinot Noir today, even though you're still in mainly Chardonnay territory.
So we're not doing them anymore, I would say. We are not selling them. The only one that we are doing is for our own use, because we are using it. So we are not selling them. So actually we have some in the cellar. We could put a label on it, but most of the time we use them for the rosé. I feel like it's kind of tricky to do Coteau Rouge in Villers-Marmory. We are not the best place to do it. We have to pick some particular vineyards, and I would say that before rosé rise up, we could sell some, and now as we don't have that much Pinot Noir, all of them are really needed to do this rosé.
Okay, well, it's good. I've had the chance to try it, at least on my visits. I think your Coteau Champenois is quite good, but and I know you need it for the rosé. Even though I wish you were able to sell it more often.
I wish I was able to do everything I wanted, but it's not always the case. I have to buy more vineyards, or and starting to win the lottery.
And I think everyone's familiar that you're in the Club de Trésor, the special club, and they joined that in I believe 1978. But one of the other things that I think has changed about Margaine, it's when Mathilde's father Arnaud came back. It was all stainless steel at the time. They were still doing malolactic fermentation, and he brought back in some oak. Began to push more towards non-malolactic, and I think you can tell the changes in the quality that's gone up. And it's interesting with Arnaud and Mathilde, there's always a curiosity and a drive to try new things and to never be set in, you always do it the same way all the time. And I think that helps bring the quality of the wines out and keeps them consistently high quality, though different from year to year.
Yeah, was mainly doing like basic cuvée, like Bruts, a little bit of
Uh-oh, we're losing her again.
Yeah, she's being beamed up to the mothership, I think, right now.
Well, it's just at the very end of the
second,
when
I'm getting. Sorry, you can't hear me, right?
We've got you back. Yeah, I think your cellular signal is going in and out.
It's the weather.
Sounds like Ariana Grande.
Okay, I think I'm back.
All right.
Yes.
4G, woo! Oh, sorry. So yeah, I was saying that yeah, we did. My father did a lot of change when he came back. So higher volumes, change of vinification, new cuvées, change in the vineyard. Obviously, getting back to grass, back to plowing. Took back the old tractor from my grandfather and just starting to work the soil. You know, I remember that my grandmother is always telling me that back at the time he was the only one in the village doing that, so everyone was like looking at him like weirdly. Yeah, he made all this change quite quickly, so increasing also a little bit the volume. And yeah, a lot of change has been made, but that's, you know, having a new generation is helping improving stuff sometimes. So just keeping the same base, just adding something up. My grandfather was the best. I mean, he's still the best wine grower I know. He knows so much stuff about the soil, about the rain, about the weather. He has all this, you know, he has this observation that we don't do that much anymore, you know, that is really important. And just, you know, each generation is adding his stuff. So this is what we do. Yeah, with my dad, we're still working on some stuff, obviously, together. Because if we stay as we are, you know, getting a little bit tired. So just still doing a lot of observation in the vineyard and trying to do also some in the winery. But also when you're doing or observing or doing things, either in the vineyard or in the winery, it takes time to see what it's changing. So, you know, just observing right now.
So you talked about the next generation, and I think this is a good point to go into a topic that I have a lot of interest on. You know, I mentioned some other growers, some young, I guess some not so young anymore. I mentioned, you know, there's Raphael Beresh, Alexandre Carton, Flavien Nowak, you know, I could go on and on, Etienne Kausek, Aurélien Sounin, and they're all male. But you're a young woman, and you're not just doing the marketing commercial side, and it may be politically correct to say this, but most of the time, among top growers like yourself, the female sits more on the commercial side, the marketing side, maybe gets into some winemaking, but doesn't really go into the vineyard. You're one of the few who you go out, you work the vines, you're in the winery. I mean, you also do some of the marketing, commercial travel. You're doing everything as a woman, and that's not typical. What is that like for you? Because it's really just like Villas Marmory is Chardonnay in a Pinot land. You're kind of still a woman in a land of mostly men, if I can ask you.
So, I mean, it's getting better. It's getting better with my generation. So I'm not the only one anymore, which is great. But really, really proud to be, you know, to do what I do. I just think that it's great to show people that, you know, a woman can do the same thing as men and same thing reverse, I would say. So, yeah, doing everything. I would say 80% of my time is whether in the vineyard or the winery, and the rest is yeah, marketing and sales. Yeah, how does it feel? I just feel proud. I think it's the word. I'm feeling proud that you know, things are changing out here, and I'm part of it. So that's great.
I mean, do you ever get, I guess, people who assume you don't know enough? Is it harder for you to be taken seriously by some people who say, maybe, hey, where's your father, or where's your brother, or what are you doing? I mean, do you get some of this, I guess, prejudice or sexism that you have to deal with?
Yes, I think there is also the age that you know, is you know, doing it because I'm still kind of young. But yeah, I definitely when you know, I'm doing some visits. I remember back at the time when I was doing some visits at the beginning, they were like with me, but they were asking where was my father. And then when they saw my father, they were asking him like deeper questions that I could have answered. And I was like, oh my God. But yeah, or just when you're doing like some tastings, like salon with a lot of people, sometimes they think that you are like the girl that is pouring. That's it. But doesn't. I mean, still happening sometimes, but not as much as the beginning. Because now I know, to make me appear, and I mean, my father is is really humble and doesn't speak that much. He's always like kind of shy with his work. So when I came back, one of my big demands was to try to speak a little bit more and show that what we are doing is also nice, and that we sometimes should be proud of that. So I'm speaking a little bit more, which is helping too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would say your father is probably the most humble, aw shucks type of guy. I mean, I can remember the first time I met him, I said, your wines are great. And he just kind of shrugged his shoulder and said, thanks. And, but I mean, he's a brilliant man. And once you get him talking, he gets going once he finds out you're interested.
Yeah.
But I also know with you working alongside of him, I'd like the perspective on the father-daughter, because that's also different from the normal father-son or mother-daughter that you see more often in Champagne. But I know you're doing new things in the winery as well. I know last time I visited, you had certain wines, again, that, they were harvested on different days or made on a different day. You had leaf day and flowers and things like that, that you're also opening, I think, your father's eyes to different things.
Yeah, I mean, being working with his dad is sometimes tricky, I would say, because obviously I'm a girl and he is a guy. So sometimes, like, trying to either make things easier for me or harder. But that's normal. I still have a lot of things to learn, and sometimes he had to be harsh, I would say. But yeah, I also, I went abroad. I did my stuff, and I think when you're young, you have a lot of time and energy to spend. So I'm really curious, and I really like being out and like just trying new stuff. So I don't know if it's my generation or what, but most of the time I'm coming up with an idea, and he's like not really answering like you when you have something. He's like, mm-hmm. And after speaking like quite a lot about it, he starts changing his mind. But it takes time, but that's normal. Like, we have so much things to do that experimentation is taking more time, so that we don't always have. So yeah, I'm trying new stuff about biodynamics. This is something I really, really want to get deeper into. But again, I don't want to rush. So we are doing some observation in the winery, and next year in the vineyard too. Next year, where I will start, doing some action to try to, change stuff. And we'll see how it goes. If we like it, we are still doing it. If we don't like it, we're going to stop. And yeah, I just try some new stuff. I have some vineyard where we are not cutting anything anymore. We are just like, doing some pressage, as we say. So I'm just not cutting anything. I got some. So I worked with François Huré and his brother Pierre. So they gave me some hints about that. So just trying to go see what the others are doing, trying also to think about what we could work here, and experimenting a lot.
Yeah, I think I was with Francois Huré, I want to say maybe a day before I visited you one time, and I think he paid you one of the best compliments. When I said I was going to Margaine, he said, oh, so you're meeting with Arnaud and Mathilde? And I said, yes. He said, Mathilde is young, but she is damn good. Which I thought was great. But I mean, at your young age already, he's like, she's going to be a superstar. Coming from Francois, who I love, I think that's one of the biggest compliments that he can give somebody.
He is, and he's the best teacher ever. Like, that's really great. Great. You can go to see Francois and speak for hours with him. He's like always listening a lot, which is really nice to have someone like that is helping you out in this world sometimes where you can get lost on track and lost, you know. So yeah. Thank you, Francois, if you're listening to us. But yeah.
Now, I guess getting back to your vineyards, a couple of weeks ago we met with Laurent Champ, who's very lucky because he's got 10, 11 hectares, but only 10 or 11 parcels, and all his plots are really big. You know, you've got 45 different plots. You have some that are, 5,000ths of a hectare. I think your biggest one is only 0.7 hectare. You have a lot of very small plots spread out across the village of Villers-Marmery and then also a little bit in Verzy. How hard is it for you to be able to keep up with all your plots? Some of them are very, very small, and some of your neighbors might not have good farming practices.
I mean, we have a lot of small plots, but they are all in Villers-Marmery, so that's kind of easier when everything is in the same village. I mean, if you're thinking about Francois, sometimes as I used to work a little bit with them, when in one day you have to do like 20 kilometers everywhere to get to different vineyards, which is harder because you're losing time, obviously. So keeping track is not that bad because we just can take the bike or the car and just go and check and see what's needed there. And obviously we can go during weekends and Sunday to still be on time. And yeah, obviously we can't decide for the others, so the neighbors can do whatever they want to do. And what do you want us to say? Nothing. First step, I think it was doing something different from the other. It wasn't the easiest. They were complaining about us more than we were complaining about them back at the time. And no, things are changing in Villers-Marmery. People are starting to, think about the future. They have all this obligation that we have to do now by the government, by the politics. They had this huge debate in France about, the people living in the countryside that didn't want it to get any pesticide next to them. So now we have to be careful. So people are starting to be, and most of the time our vineyard, when we plant them, we try to try to be a little bit further. When I'm thinking about further, it's only a few meters away, but this is what we do. But yeah, no. Losing track is not really the case when everything is nearly at the same place. So it's really easy and really convenient, I would say. We are pretty much lucky than anything.
Okay. So at least you can walk, or you can take your Jeep and you can quickly reach all the different plots and parcels to respond quickly should you have to.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, to do the treatment with the tractors is only taking a day. We don't need 2 days because everything is really nearby. So in terms of reaction, we are pretty good. We try to.
Yeah. Now, the three vineyards that I think associate with Margaine as the most famous, and you can let me know if you agree or not, have always been Alouette, Brocot, and Champ d'Enfer. Because a lot of times those go into the special club or the Blanc de Blanc, Millésime, or the Extra Brut. I think historically, before your father came back, it seemed that Alouette's was the main wine in the special club. Would you say those are your three, I guess, top vineyards, or how do those three normally end up in your top wines, it seems, year after year? And I know the blend changes each year of the vineyards also.
Globally, I think there was also a reason for my grandfather, Les Alouettes. Back at the time, it was one of our biggest vineyards. So obviously, good quality plus biggest vineyard equal using it. But yeah, obviously, this is our top vineyard. Even though with the global warming, some years they are not obviously the best, and we are not obviously using them. Depends of how warm it got during the year. Yeah, so you have the Alouette right there on the screen. So if normally there is also Good Made that is doing a parcellaire cuvée from these plots. So it's literally where you have your hand right now. And so Les Alouettes is clay, limestone, and chalk. You are getting a Massa selection and also a little bit of clonal selection, a little bit of both, and soft surface sun exposure. And you have to, again, as I was telling you, you have to go down of 1 meter before getting to that chalk. So that's for the first vineyard. Secondly, you have the Broc, so where you are in Les Alouettes. Then you have Les Champs d'Enfer, where the chalk is a little bit is nearly directly on the ground. So it's next to Trépaille. So no, this is the Broc here. Les Champs d'Enfer, yeah, perfect. Sorry, I got lost. Yeah, so this is the Champs d'Enfer. So you see, we are on the east side of Villers-Marmerie. So between next to the forest, it's Trépaille. So this is different. Even though it's nearly the same sun exposure, so the soil is different. Getting the chalk quicker, a little bit of flint, and back at the time it wasn't used that much by my grandfather because we had less vineyard there. Globally, that we were lucky. My father went lucky because with my mom had some vineyard there. I mean, her father got some vineyard there, and it was just the vineyard next to us. So now that they got married, we have the two. Which is making a biggest vineyard. So now we have like enough quantity to be able to use it and make it something I would say significant. And obviously it's been like more than 30 years that they are grow the same way now. So they are looking really the same.
Yeah. And
what?
Oh. Nope. She's beaming up again.
Say it again.
Nope. Going in and out.
I'm still in 4 years.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I was just saying, Mathilde, I love Champ d'Enfer. I think it's got a very unique taste. I mean, I think with the stones, the roots of the vines really have to work to get down to the water table in the chalk. The grapes get ripe. I would love to see you bottle that on its own more often. I know occasionally, I think in 2006, the Extra Brut, I think, was maybe all Champ d'Enfer. But to me, it's one of the most interesting plots in all of Champagne because it's different from the rest of the village. And you get, as you said, this very unique taste of Chardonnay with almost a mysterious, fruity Villers-Marmerie flavor that, again, is like watching a suspenseful film. It's just different from everything else.
Yeah, and also it's one of our oldest vines, so obviously it's changed the taste quite a lot. We don't have huge quantities from that vineyard, but a lot of concentration, I would say. So obviously it's giving something a little bit different. And yeah, we're super lucky to have some vineyard there. I know that we're nearly the only one using them quite a lot in our blending. But yeah, obviously I have some thoughts about this plant.
So the vines there, some of them are approaching 100 years old. How long do you think they will continue to last before they eventually may have to be replanted?
That's the good question. I mean, we'll see. I mean, there is a time where it will go down. It hasn't been the time yet. So obviously we are not replanting the vines that are dying, obviously, because there is no point of putting young with old ones. So we're missing some vine at some parts, but it's still pretty healthy. And I'm telling you, when we are going pruning during the winter, that's my favorite plot to prune, just because you're always doing some weird stuff and you can let your imagination go sometimes in this, which is great. I hope it's gonna stay for a while. I don't know, to be honest. Once the vin clair and the juice that we are getting will not be as we hope, we'll think about it, but we can it can stay for a long time still. We are still having like 9,000 per hectare in the Champ d'Affaires, which is great for all vineyards.
Yeah. So I guess moving into some of the winemaking practices, I think again your winemaking techniques are unique because you have steel, you have wood, you keep reserve wines in bottle. You actually have a lot of reserve wines, some fairly old ones, which isn't normally the case for a lot of smaller producers. I mean, most smaller producers have 1, 2, maybe 3 years. You're doing different things in the cellar by using, normal commercial yeast. You're also doing indigenous yeast. Sometimes you do malolactic, non-malolactic. I guess, can you talk, somewhat about the winemaking practices and your different opinions on where you may like to see things go or new things you're trying there?
So, I mean, yeah, as you were saying, we have no rules at home, so depending on each single years and each single plot. So, I mean, as I told you, we are a pressing center, so we press for the others, so we need more vats ourselves. So back at the time, my grandfather bought like big vats that we don't need anymore, and now we're putting everything into small ones just to be able to split everything. And we taste and try to make decisions from every single vat that corresponds to a single vineyard. So it's all about tasting. It's all about how the harvest is doing. The only thing I can tell you is that indigenous yeast didn't exist before I came back. My father was completely against it, so I was lucky enough to get one vat in 2018, and it wasn't even the cuvée, it was from the Thai. But I made it. So and I did it like really simply. I did a kit tube. So when I was picking some grapes to control the maturity in the vineyard, I was touching them and keeping them aside and letting them ferment. So I did 3 different batches, and I was smelling them every day. And I used the only one that I thought that smelled the best, so it was safer, I would say. So that was the only way to make my father agree to that. So obviously, the thing is, for indigenous yeast, we're not still using them that much because they tend to give some wine that is kind of oxidative. And if you are drinking our champagne, you may know that we are not really into that oxidation, but more into the reduction. So this is not always our style. So if we use blending, we can use it. But if we are not using blending, it's going to change quite a lot what we have in the bottle. So after that, we are using a lot of different yeast. I would love to do like Flavien. I would love to, hire a lab so they can get me my yeast from my terroir. But I still have to argue a lot with my dad for that. And then
what plot did you pick the grapes from that you used for that?
From everywhere. I did a batch.
Okay.
From everywhere. It was safer. But that's a good idea. I could do it only from one single vineyard, but I have to get lots of grapes to do that. and then we will not have enough left for the harvest. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that's a good idea actually. And yeah, no, after that, malolactic fermentation is decided only after the alcoholic fermentation. And before I came back, what we were pushing into wood was more about logistic. Like the first wine that was getting into, the first juice that were getting into the winery were going into wood. No, it's not the case anymore. I'm picking the one that I want to go into wood. But as we don't like to, have our oak barrels empty, so we try to fill them as quickly as possible. So it's not always that easy to do. And yeah, so our blending and our cuvée that we are making are always quite complicated because obviously each year, each vineyard, different decisions. So you have to keep track of that. And yeah, another important part is the reserve wine. So my grandfather always kept a lot of reserve wine. My father kept doing it. We are not keeping them more than 10 years, but we have reserve wine that are old, 10 years old. That we are either keeping them in stainless steel vats or in magnums, where we do a slight second fermentation, which is called quart de mousse, same thing as Bollinger globally, where it's allow us to keep the wine under bottle that are kept safe with carbonic gas instead of sulfur, which is better, to try to lower down our use of sulfur, because obviously that as we are not doing that much the malolactic fermentation, we have to use sulfur to stop the malolactic fermentation. That's the only way, except cold or sterilization, which we don't want to use obviously because it's taking away a bit of our wine. So that's what we are doing. And for new things, the new things that I'm doing is I'm trying to get and go deeper into the splits between vineyards. So my father was blending them quite quickly. Now I try to keep them still separate for quite a long time before being able to make a full decision. Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever put out any single parcel or mono parcel wines?
Yeah. This is definitely something I'm working on, but I think I'm gonna try to do the same way. Like every single year might not be the same decision about the plots, because just for example, like in 2018, it was like a really hot year, huge volumes. And surprisingly, the vineyards that did the best were the one next to the field, like at the bottom of the village, which is normally not the case. Right. Which is, for 2019, it was the reverse. It was the one at the top of the coteau. But so that just means that depending of the years, you get something different. So you just really have to take that in mind and when you do your decision about the cuvée or stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the best examples, and it was before you came back, but in 2008, you did quite a bit more malolactic fermentation than normal. I think about 30% or so, which I think is wonderful. Your 08s aren't super acidic. It isn't going to be a wine where the acidity outlasts the fruit. I think your ability to adapt and change to each year has worked out very, very well. So I'm glad that you're finding even more variables to put into the equation, because I think it results in better wines, or at least learning what's good and what's bad.
We hope, I mean, when we are, thinking about that, so between September and October, we hope that it's the best decision. Huh? We just are seeing it from the vin clair, so it's not always easy. But yeah, there is some years it's full malo, some years it's no malo, some years it's partial. I mean, the most recent one is 2012 on the market. 2012 is full malo. So see, we are not. We don't have something in mind that we won't get away. We just try to keep our mind open about what we get into the winery. And I can tell you that's a tough decision, because sometimes you're like, oh my God, should we do it? Shall we not do it? It's like, about tasting. And also we have to remember that our palate is not, it likes acidity a lot. So we have to think that sometimes we need to get our expectation a little bit elsewhere. Yeah.
So I think it'd also be good kind of to talk about the range so everyone can understand the different wines that you make. I mean, you're out in the vineyard, so you probably don't have a bottle of each to show people. But I mean, you've got a pretty diverse range, as well as I think one of the best sweeter champagnes around. The Demi-Sec I think is phenomenal. But I guess can you talk a little bit and kind of walk people through the different wines that you make at Margaine?
Yeah, sure. So I have. We have a lot of different cuvées now, but yeah, you have the Brudnan vintage, which is globally kind of the flagship, I would say, where we use kind of a lot of reserve wine to get a little bit something a little bit rounder. And again, the blending is going to change depending on the bottling. But yeah, here we try to represent what we have at home. It will be always nearly 90% of Chardonnay, 10% of Pinot Noir, like in the vineyard. And yes, and so the demi-sec that you were speaking about is globally the sweeter version of this one. So we are not changing the blending between the two. Then we have the extra brut. So the extra brut is 100% Chardonnay this time. Just trying to this time really show what young Chardonnay from Villars-Marmaris can be like. I mean, with a little bit less aging. So this is where you get the Granny Smith, the high tension. So some years it's with no malo, some years with malo, just again depending. And you will get most of the time 20-ish% of reserve wine into that one. And then we have two rosé. So one rosé is a blending. It's a blending rosé. So obviously it's so we used the Blanc de Blanc of the special club for this one, plus the coteau that we do ourselves. So you have 75% of Chardonnay, the rest of Pinot Noir, but only a splash of Coteau Rouge, which will be 8%. Then we do a rosé de Saignée, which is so maceration rosé this time. So we started doing it in 2011. I was doing the harvest with my dad this year because I wasn't studying. I don't remember why. It was an August vintage, obviously, so it might have helped. But yeah, so this time we just decided to do something different, and it's nothing to compare from the other wine that we're doing in our range. It's something a little bit deeper, fruitier, heavier than the rest, and just we did it in that way because we wanted something a little bit with more body to go for some other occasion. And then you have the special club, which will be always the vintage, always Blanc de Blanc, and then trying this time to show off the year, but also what Chardonnay Villars-Marmaris with long aging can look like. So just a different point of view of these Chardonnays, and I think we're here. I think I did a range, yeah. And then we have the special club into Magnums, obviously, that gets 1 year more of aging.
Yeah, so I never knew that the regular blended rosé, the white, was based on the special club. That's why it ages so well, and that's why even the 1987 still tastes really good now.
Yeah, it's the same base.
No, interesting. And for your Rosé de Saignée, you actually co-macerate the Chardonnay with the Pinot Noir in that one, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to keep a little bit of Chardonnay into that because obviously we're in Villars-Marmaris, so otherwise it doesn't make sense. And just we didn't want it something too heavy, so adding some Chardonnay is helping with the freshness. So yeah, it's globally the reverse of the blending rosé, 75% Pinot Noir and the rest of Chardonnay that they are co-macerating together. Yeah. but we are not doing it every year. It's a vintage, and it's only years where Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are ripe at the same level, same time. Can tell you it's not happening every year.
Yeah, and I know you can't make red wine either, or Coteaux Champenoise for the rosé every year either. So sometimes I know you have to use reserve red wine to make the rosé.
Yeah, we do it a lot actually. We do it a lot, but you know, even for Pinot Noir, most of the time the Pinot Noir that we are gonna use for the champagne and that we are not that are white, obviously, we like to keep them in reserve for at least a year before using them in the blending. I do think that in Villarnois they need a little bit more time to get settled on, I would say.
Okay. So since we're a little more than an hour in, I guess, Todd, Frank, is it a good time to, I guess, go to the audience and have people raise their hands and field some questions?
Yeah, so there was a bunch of good questions that were put in the chat. So now's a great time, folks. I'd love for you, because Mathilde's English is obviously so good, you should address these questions, you know, individually. So use the raise hand function. Any of those, I'll try to dig through and see if I don't see the hands raised. Some of those good questions were in there. There was one really early on that I was going to ask as well, and I'll have to look for it. So, but for now, we're going to start with David Bucher. We're going to have to unmute you because you muted yourself. There you go.
He's muted again.
Yeah, unmute yourself, David, because you muted it.
There we go. Now it brings up a menu and you have to select one. So, hello.
Hello.
So, question actually came from my wife Laura, who's sitting here, which is, how long do you like to keep your wines, you know, on the cork before you disgorge and then release them? Are you wanting to do that longer in the future, or are you happy where you are now?
That's a good question. So you might know that Champagne appellation is going down, so we can't pick as much grapes that we want to now. And the demand is still there. So globally, the stock managing is really tricky. So I'm really speaking about a business aspect right now. It's really tricky because you get less wine and you have still the same demand. So managing the stock, I can tell you, is like challenging. Obviously, for the vintages, I want to keep them at least 5 years on lease. So I'm working obviously on an allocation because it's the only way to keep track and to get the aging that I want. And for the other cuvée, obviously it has to be less. First of all, because we need some money at some point. I'm going to be as simple as that. And also because, the Chardonnay in Villarnois, they are really, they have two ways of expressing themselves. They express themselves a different way when they are young than when they are old. And I think it's great to see both ways. And I'm more than happy to do some aging here because it's really important for the vintages. But for the others, having them young is not that bad. You can really get this tension. You can really get this citrusy, this cradismus that my father and I like a lot. So I'm from the one that it's really rare in Champagne, but I'm from the one that loves old Champagne, like the really old one that even get like really brioche, really deep. But I think that's also a perspective, and you can, when we release them, they are ready to drink. And if you want to drink it in a different way, you just have to let them age a little bit more, and you're gonna find all the other aromas that you are maybe looking for. So I won't change the aging here at home, just trying to get a little bit more aging on the brutes. And that's it. Otherwise it would stay that way. But again, I'm telling you, we get less grape than we want, and we still have the same demand. So I'm kind of, taking my hair away from my head to try to say yes to everyone and just getting the good stuff. So yeah, I hope I answer well.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Next, we got John Hunt, who has a number of questions. I think we'll see which ones he asks. John, I'm trying to unmute you, but you muted yourself.
Yes,
Go for it.
Thank you. Mathilde, thank you for taking the time. And the question I had was about something you said earlier on with the big houses that that you're able to sell grapes to. And my question was, do they maintain much of a presence out in the vineyards during the growing season, or do they tend to kind of show up at harvest and say, well, sure, well, maybe not?
That's a good question. For their own vineyard, obviously they are in their vineyard, huh? So they are checking everything. For the grapes that they are buying, they just go and check at the harvest. Obviously, you get some reputation. Because the grapes and the juice that are ending up in their winery, they know from who they are coming. So they are tasting them with their enologist, so they know the difference between people most of the time. Again, depends, because there are some houses that can't really do that. If there are several different suppliers, they need to put that in one single vat, because they need to fill it as much as possible before getting any oxidation. So I'm going to speak for me, because I know what's happening to our place. I don't know for the others, but they are here quite a lot now for the harvest. It wasn't the case a few years earlier, but we had some tricky harvests with wine that weren't the best ever. So now they are more into the winery, and they are more here into the harvest. And now the big houses are trying to figure out a way to check better every single grapes that are coming here. It's kind of tricky to try to check every single grapes. And as we are a pressing center, we are the person in between them and the growers. So this is our job to make sure that the grapes that are coming to our pressing center is good enough for them. This is our job. So we when we have a doubt, when we are not sure, we are calling them for them to come and check by themselves. Hasn't happened quite a lot, I have to say, because we are working with growers that are kind of the same style as us, and we are also cutting grapes for them also as during the harvest. So we pay a lot the people that come here to cut. It takes a lot of time, but we are selecting quite a lot in the vineyard before selecting in the press. So this is 99% of the selecting part is done in the vineyard. Cost a lot, but is tend to be efficient. So this is what I can tell you. So there are things happening here. There are some research and developments that are done for the quality control. I'm 100% sure that at some point we will have machines that check that for us. But it's not the case yet. But I can tell you that after 2017, they are coming to check the grapes. Yeah. And also another point that I want to add is now your grapes get paid more if you're organic or if you have some certification. So they know what you're doing there.
Yes, thank you. I don't know that there's a machine that will ever replace your grandfather, to be quite honest with you. You said he knows so much, and just being who he is, and that was pretty impressive to hear.
I know, but at some point it's so hard to get people here to work that it will happen. For example, like the harvest machine are forbidden in Champagne, and the research normally are done only by the CIDC. And I can tell you that they are not the only one doing some research. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Next, we got Sean Sidney. I'm gonna ask to unmute you there. There you go. Good to go.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks so much, Mathilde, for doing this. I just had a question because your region is, I guess, sort of on the cusp of climate change now. You're feeling the effects. Are you changing the work in the vineyards? Are you still doing research to sort of see how, like, are you sort of watching and seeing now and waiting, or are you actually taking steps in the vineyards to deal with the effects of climate change?
Yeah, so obviously this is something that is happening for a few years, but we are only starting to really see the real impact these past years. So we are trying to figure out what we can do. It's not always easy because it's pretty, young. For example, last year, it was the first year that my dad saw that much grape burned, like just burned from the sun. The temperature peak at 40-ish degrees is definitely the max that we can get because we had like lots of grapes that were burned, and obviously as we are using some natural products that are copper and sulfur that tend to dry a little bit the vineyard with its waves is getting worse, obviously, because you're drying. I mean, it's like you were drying your skin and putting it in front of the sun. You will get some burn, obviously. So thinking about not putting any I would say any product in the vineyard during these heat waves, trying to harvest at the good time. It's really tricky right now because you have to make the right call because there is when the maturity starts to rise, it's doing some waves. So you have to eat the good ones to be sure you're not taking something too ripe. So at home, I don't know if you know, but we have always been picking our grape pretty ripe, a little bit more above the average of Champagne. But we saw this past year that there is a time where it's too much when you're getting into really like a lot of tropical fruits, which is not really what we are looking for. So again, this is going into the vineyard as often as you can to check the change of climate is affecting the vine and reacting as quickly as we can. We don't need water yet for us personally, just because it's still raining quite a lot during winter. So we still have a lot of water into the soil. My grandfather is afraid about that every single year. He's saying that we're gonna run out of water. It hasn't been the case yet. Obviously, some vineyards that have a lot of grass have some trouble sometimes, but I would say that right now we are in the way where we can observe. We don't get that much damage, and we can take advantage of that. We have grapes that are riper than ever, which is great sometimes because you can get a little bit more body, more concentration, and you saw that from the vintages. We have been doing so much vintages this past year, way more than before. I mean, my grandfather was doing 3 vintages per every decade. Now we are about nearly every year, which is I think we are like on the top of the curve. We'll see what time is gonna eat the drop, but right now we are just observing. We are affected, obviously, but not more in the positive way than in the bad way, I would say.
Thank you very much.
Mathilde, you said 48 degrees Celsius?
Uh-huh.
That's for those of us who don't know Celsius, that's 118 Fahrenheit. That's insane. In Champagne, that's impossible to even comprehend. 118 degrees in Champagne.
A tiny little follow-up. Does that affect the use of dosage at all? Are you finding that the dosage is different for the cuvées now, or you're working with it?
Obviously, you're getting grapes that are riper, so obviously more sugar. So you have to be careful during the alcoholic fermentation. You have to be careful also for the second fermentation. You have to take in mind that your sugar level is already a little bit higher, and you have to take also consideration of that when you're doing the dosage, because obviously you're getting something a little bit heavier with a little bit more body and more fruit, so it's going to obviously influence on the dosage. Definitely. And yeah, 40 degrees was a lot. So we had 2 heat waves of 40 degrees last summer, end of July, and we lost about 20-ish% of the grapes with sunburn.
40 or 48?
40, like 30.
No, 30. How was the high temperature? Was 40 or 48?
No, it's exactly 42.
42 was the high.
Yeah.
42.
That's still getting up
That's
there.
107. That's
107,
almost
108. I don't know, David. I made the wrong Celsius to Fahrenheit last time. It's got to be about 107, 108.
Yeah, 107.6. That's insane. Wow.
Yeah. So I guess, Mathilde, I also want to, I guess, kind of tag along when David asked the question about aging the wines. I know from talking to your father in the past, for wines that you keep in your Onotech, he had said he didn't like to keep them undisgorged for more than 10 years. He liked to disgorge them and then allow them to age because he thought that worked out better. Do you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on the optimum time, I guess, to disgorge for Onotech wines?
I mean, actually, we have both of them. He's keeping some. Sometimes we disgorge. I mean, we disgorge them when we want them. But there are some that were disgorged for like quite a long time now, that are still haven't been open. But yeah, definitely, it shows a difference when after the disgorgement. Obviously, the aging is different. As long as you don't have any cork problem. But I would say that I don't have any long thing of that to be to have like a real point of view about that, I would say.
Okay. So what about, you mentioned cork, what about Metic?
The problem with Metic is that there is less air that pass in between. And I was telling you that we are in a reduction terroir, so it's not helping at all. So it's not a question for us. We will not use that at all at some point. We need that. We need that exchange. And the normal cork are for us still really important. Now there are new types of cork that are, checked more. Where they say that there is a 99% of chance that it hasn't TCA. So this is the one that we are using now.
Okay. And then I guess another question, if we look at your range of wines, one of the things that's always fascinated me is you have the Blanc de Blanc millésime, a lot of times in Magnum, sometimes also in regular bottle, and you have the Special Club. How often are they the same? How often are they different? Because it seems sometimes they're almost the same wine. Are there normally differences between them?
Exact same wine. Just the thing is, we age more the Magnums because they need more time first, and also they are not Special Club Magnums shape because we hate the shape of the Magnums of Special Club. That's the only reason. So we are using regular Magnums for that reason. That's it. It's not a quality problem or anything. It's just because it's just an aesthetical one. But same exact wine as the Special Club in that.
Okay, gotcha. So I guess any other questions out there, Todd?
Yeah, no, Frank, you brought up a point. Do you want to talk about that, about the production terroir?
No, I mean, I know that Mathilde covered it at the beginning, and so I was just fascinated when she brought it up again, that it's not something I've thought about, and I think it's an interesting way to start thinking about what the vineyard can do to create that kind of sensory impact in a finished wine. So I like the concept, that's all.
Yeah, it's like pretty tricky, I would say. Yeah, there is obviously the things that we are doing in the vineyard that influence that, but yeah, it's also a question about terroir. I think it's also about the soil. I mean, it's the soil.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's it for questions, unless Blake wants to say his. Blake, you want to?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
You got me?
We got you.
Okay, Matilda, thank you so much for your time, sharing all the information and history and your passion. It comes off really clear and it's very impressive. One of the questions I always like to ask a winemaker is, when you're not drinking your own champagne, what is your choice? What would you drink on a regular basis? And then if you had to have if you had a special occasion, champagne, what would be your number one choice for that?
So apart from champagne, right?
For champagne.
With champagne?
So first, besides your own champagne, what's your favorite? And second would be, when it is a special occasion, what's the champagne you would choose? So it's kind of both.
Okay, sorry. First answer would be just because being nostalgic. Just because when for Christmas we always open a bottle of Bollinger Grande Année. So I don't have a big vintage, but it's just about nostalgic points where I will for at home for like special occasion, which is Christmas globally. We always open a bottle of Bollinger, and otherwise I'm drinking kind of everyone. I love trying new champagne all the time, but I tend to have some habits that stay for 1 month or two. What did I drink lately that was really cool? I mean, obviously I'm going to speak about Francois. Have you ever tried his Solera? His Solera from the 80s is really insane. I love it. So this will be my top choice right now, I would say. That.
So when you're not drinking your champagne, you drink other champagne. That's still, you focus your consumption.
And if I'm not drinking champagne, I will go to Burgundy directly. So,
Burgundy,
yeah, easy.
Thank you, Matilda.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I will agree. Francois Herré's Mimoire is really, really good.
Yeah, Mimoire is insane. Yeah.
But you have your own Solera cuvée as well. I don't know if we really touched on the M de Margaine.
Yeah, I forgot to mention it. I'm like, oh my god, I was just thinking about it. Yeah, we have one. It's not from the 80s like Francois, a little bit younger, starting in 2002, but already nearly 20 years old. So really happy to have that in the winery, and really happy to have that because as I was speaking to you about that, it's a mix of young Chardonnay and old Chardonnay, and you still get this tension from the young ones, but you get the body, the honey, the caramel stuff aroma from the old ones. That is giving something different from the other cuvée that we do. So yeah, we have a Solera at home, but it's in stainless steel, and Francois Herré, it's in oak barrel.
Yeah, big food.
Big food, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, we've got another question just popped up from Astrid. Astrid, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. Merci, Mathilde. Question about the Chardonnay clone. I read that you have a special clone that is only used in your area, and I was wondering whether that was the case and whether you could tell us something about it.
To be honest, we are using kind of an ordinary one here, like the 41P. So I mean, nothing. I mean, I won't be really useful for this one because we are not. We didn't plant most of the vineyards that were planted by my grandfather, and the only one that we are replanting is we're using something pretty much classic.
Okay. All right. That's all for questions that we've got. Brad, you want to wrap things up? We're at 90 minutes here.
Yeah, so we've already taken Mathilde over by 30 minutes, so we all owe her a bottle of Grande Année now. So
yeah, 95. 95 is one I like.
Yeah.
So, Mathilde, thank you very much for bringing the sunshine in Champagne since it rained all day. Apparently, if you go out in the vineyards, the rain stays away. That's what we've learned today.
Yeah, really happy about that.
So it's been wonderful to spend time with you. Again, thank you. I think the work you're doing is fabulous. Margaine is in good hands. You can tell your father it's getting better now. So you're going to take it to the next level. And I hope to see you soon when I can finally get back to Champagne and travel somewhere and get a haircut, which I badly need.
See you soon. See you soon. We hope that the borders are going to open really soon.
Thank you, Mathilde. It's been great to meet you. Look forward to seeing you in person when we can get back there.
All right. See you then in Villers-Marmerie.
Okay. God bless.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bonsoir.
Bye.